It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of a bank in formation. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ference Toth.
Welcome to Your Personal Bank Show. And I tell you what, I just want to express and share I want to wish everybody, well, I'll just say it, a very Merry Christmas during this holiday season. Now, I understand in a lot of circles that isn't politically correct. I understand some people might actually be offended by that because they don't celebrate or believe in Christmas or the season or anything about it. I'm not saying it to offend anyone or upset anyone in any way. It's just how I feel. It's who I am. I guess it's how I was raised. And it's just how I feel about the season. And I have no intention of offending anyone or upsetting anyone in any way. I wish you the best in whatever you do or don't celebrate. That's entirely up to you. But at the same time, please don't come after me because I feel a certain way or I believe a certain way. See, the last time I checked, this was still a free country, right? And I hope it stays that way. So I just, like I said, I want to wish everybody best wishes, this holiday season. And what I want to encourage you, I'm going to talk about a few things about life. I'm going to talk about money. It's kind of a special message here, The thing I guess I want to share is it's been an extraordinarily difficult year for most people, for many people, I'll put it that way. A lot of people have been impacted. I've talked about this in previous shows about a lot of small businesses and things, of course. A lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of older seniors, or seniors in particular, and have not been able to see or spend time with their loved ones like they normally would. It's a shame. Hopefully all of this stuff comes to a rapid close. We have vaccines that are getting dispersed and implemented, and hopefully they work as they think they are, and we finally see the end of this. That would be great. But I think I want to take a moment I always like to, this time of year, I particularly like the holiday season because things kind of slow down a bit. I work with clients. I'm on the phone a lot, computer, talking to people, nearly every day. I'm on the radio sharing thoughts and ideas. And a lot of the ideas that I share are from what folks, contact me and questions that they have. And, in that regard, I've been extremely blessed. And I thank you, and I really appreciate the comments and responses. I've been overwhelmingly positive. So thank you. I'm trying to, this is money radio. I get it. We're talking about money and how that affects your life. And absolutely, money is important, a part of our life. But as I talk about all the time as a financial person, I've been in this industry over 22 years. I guess I'm coming up on my 23rd now. I've owned several businesses. I own the agency currently. I'm in the process of starting a bank when I'm the chairman of the board of a bank in formation. So when the time is right, things look right, we're going to open a bank. That's the plan. So yes, my life does revolve a lot around money, financial stuff, planning, all that kind of good stuff. But I'm the first to tell you, money's not the most important thing in life. For some people, it is, and I'll explain what I mean by that. I have clients who I've worked with over the decades actually, who are most would consider extremely wealthy. I have others, most of my clients are probably average folks. What you call upper middle class Americans, just people like you and I. That's kind of where I fall. And I've got some clients that don't have much or just starting out or starting over. And what I can say is, from a happiness standpoint, I know people who are very, very wealthy who are absolutely miserable. I know people who have next to nothing who are have a great attitude, are very upbeat, very happy, and very happy people. You would just describe them as a happy person. Money doesn't change who you are. Money doesn't change your happiness level, I guess I should say. I guess money can, if somebody who hasn't had money suddenly, then they can allow it to change them, but it doesn't make you happy. It can make your life more comfortable, no question. It can reduce stress, or at least financial stress in your life. There's still other stresses, okay? And I'm sharing this from a personal standpoint. In my life, I came from what you consider lower middle class. Grew up on a farm, raised most of our own food. We worked hard, raised horses and all that kind of stuff to scratch out a living, basically be able to eat and all that good stuff. So I come from that kind of a background. And in my working lifetime, I've had periods of time, like I said, again, starting several and owning and running several businesses. I've had some really big successes, and I've had some failures. And so there's been times we've made a lot of money, and other times not so good. And like my wife said to me, it was a few years ago, it was very astute. I've got a partner, we're coming up on our 20th year now, who she said one time, she goes, money doesn't make you happy, but it sure does eliminate a lot of stress. She's right. So why am I saying all this? I guess what I would like to share is this is the time of year, like I said, I like to reflect and think on where I've been, where do I want to go, where am I in terms of the bigger picture, bigger part of this world, this universe, right? All those kinds of things. It's also, for me, a goal-setting time where I start thinking about, what do I want next year to look like? I believe we can manifest a lot of the things we want in our lives by the actions and goals and things that we take. We've all heard if you write goals down, they're much more likely to come to pass. In fact, if you write them down and then you review them regularly, the probability of those goals occurring increases dramatically, like exponentially. Okay, many studies have shown that. So, but before I do that goal setting and what I want to accomplish in life and what I want my life to look like this next year, I like to reflect and think about last year. What did I like about last year? What didn't I like? What could I have done differently? What part did I play in it? And I think this year in particular, 2020, should give most of us a lot to think about. Was it a difficult and challenging year? There were a lot of changes, no question. Did a lot of people have to change what they were doing or how they lived their day-to-day life? Absolutely. And generally speaking, we're creatures of habit. We're not big fans of change, most of us. The innovators are, but most people aren't. So it was unsettling. But the thing is, as challenging and frustrating as many of the things were, at the same time, there were a lot of really positives and revelations that occurred this year with a lot of people, including myself. See, my wife has also said this and joked. When you sit down with somebody and talk to them about their financial situation and their goals and dreams and hopes and what they want to accomplish in their life, in many ways, there's a lot more counseling that goes on than financial products or planning. In other words, you're really trying to get a feel, if you're really listening and you're really in tune with somebody, and that's something I really try to accomplish when I talk to somebody, is really listen and really try to understand where they're coming from and what's important to them. I've done this a lot. I've done it for over 20 years. So I got a little bit of experience with this, if you know what I'm saying. In fact, there's a whole area of financial world called financial counseling that's gaining traction. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, about our lives and money, and reflecting and thinking about next year in the next segment. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All right, we're welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show. And I guess in this Christmas holiday season, I just really wanted to talk about a few things, the bigger picture, more than just strictly money. Although, again, money is an important aspect of life. It's hard to live without, and particularly in our society. But 2020 has given us a real opportunity. With all the challenges and everything, the changes that have occurred, it's also given us a tremendous opportunity for many of us. And that is to really reflect on what is truly important to you. Let me give you I'm going to give you a personal example and maybe share some others from many clients I've been working with this past year. By working from home, I've always worked from home. I've worked from home quite a bit for the last 5-6 years. And the reason, actually longer than that, but the main reason is, a lot of how I generate business and clients and stuff previous to COVID was speaking, I spoke to a number of investor groups around the country about the Your Personal Bank concept, how it can maximize cash growth, liquidity, minimize taxes, and create positive arbitrage using a bank line of credit, so you're keeping the difference. So even if you spend money, you're still making some of those dollars back. You're still earning some instead of just giving those dollars up to pay a bill or buy something. It's a powerful tool. And I get overwhelmingly positive responses when I introduce the concept or do a workshop and things like that. And because I've traveled all over, basically the Western U.S. from Chicago West, okay, I have I'm located in Phoenix. I have clients literally all over the Western U.S. So out of necessity, most of the business was done by Zoom, GoToMeetings, phone calls, things like that. And that's been that way for years. So whether I was in an office or at home, which I have an office in my home, of course, it didn't matter, right? Well, COVID just accelerated all that, obviously. And even now, I'm not flying, for example, to these events to speak because they're not happening, right? Because of the COVID shutdowns and various things. So I'm home even more than I used to be, which is something my wife and girls love. I do too. In fact, it's been interesting. Most of this year, we've been able to spend, have lunch together nearly every day. We normally in the past had dinner together most of the time, but now it's lunch and dinner, and it's kind of become like a family routine. And it's interesting how, we've always been a close family. We've always been involved with our daughters' lives. I think most people know us would know that, we're very, very close family, but we've gotten even closer. And I've heard that same story, refrain, whatever, from a lot of people, that the folks you're living with, there's been friction in a lot of scenarios, but also there's been a lot more closeness and learning how to live together again even better. I think that's awesome. Family's important to you, which I think for a lot of people that's true. Certainly in my case is. 2020's offered us more family time. It's allowed us to sit back a little bit. And there were periods of time with shutdowns and stuff where people didn't have jobs or businesses, or they had to rethink what they were doing or various things, but they had more time to slow down. And the pace of life in our society and business, I would say in 2020, has slowed down a bit. And I think in general that's a good thing. Because if you look at other countries around the world, and you can even include places like Europe and stuff, that are probably the most similar to us, their pace of life is slower. I mean, it's a common joke. Anybody who's been on vacation, for example, to any island, you go to the Caribbean or Hawaii or places like that, of course, they have the manana, or, the Mexico or Central America, those places, manana time or island time. You heard that. It's like, yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it kind of attitude. Now, is all that good? I don't know. But is some of that with a little balance in there? I think so. Because, we keep adding more technology. Things keep getting faster and faster and faster and immediate. And yes, there are benefits in terms of productivity and all that, no question. But at the same time, it demands more of us. See, I'm old enough to remember before there were cell phones. Our daughters can't fathom that, but I'm one of those that I can remember that, and doing business with people prior to cell phones. I remember telling people, hey, well, I'm going to be out of town that day. Well, let's get back, can't reach me because I was going to Prescott, right, for the day, working with clients. And if those of you who don't know, Prescott's a town of about an hour and a half north of Phoenix. And I remember the day when even there was no cell phones. So it was like, if you went to town, you got on the highway and drove there, you couldn't talk to anybody. And in some respects, now I can talk to people. You got the hands free. You can talk to clients as you're driving to and from and things like that. It's more productive, yes, but also we've lost some of that. I always liked doing, because I used to go up there about once a week, and it was my thinking time, I would call it. It was my time to sit back. I was just driving. There was no interruptions, nobody calling me, nothing else other than maybe think about what I was going to do or who I was going to meet, or think about business or family or whatever was important. Or, we've lost some of that. That's why when we go on vacations, we try to go to places where, and I point out to people, we have limited cell and internet access. I think there are times when we as human beings need to unplug. And so like with our family, Sundays, we've kind of used as a day where we take some time off, where all electronics are off. And we just spend some time together doing something, whether it's playing a board game, going for a walk, talking, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. It's an unplugged time. I think that's becoming increasingly important. And if these are things that you feel important, you should implement in your life, in your family's life, going forward. I hope we don't lose some of those things the positive things that we gained in 2020, is what I'm trying to say. Interestingly, this is the thing I've learned, I guess maybe almost by accident. I've read about it. I hear about it. It's counterintuitive. But it's funny how if you take a little bit of time like that for yourself to recharge your batteries, you're actually more productive when you are working. You're more efficient. You're more profitable. And so you would think if you put in more hours, more time, a lot of people fall into that trap. They always say there's, never been anybody that's on their deathbed said they wish they had put more hours in the office, right? It's the opposite usually. But many people fall into that trap where they, become workaholics and they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week and sometimes more. And they think they're being more productive. And the reality is, if you look at the bigger picture, they're not. Because they're spending so many hours doing whatever they're doing, they don't have time to step back and sharpen the axe. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a famous story that's been told. I don't even know who told it originally, and I don't even know if it's true or not, but the story really, I think, illustrates the point what I mean by recharging your batteries or sharpening your axe. And where the story came from is really, it goes back to the days when they had the lumberjacks, when they used to chop trees with axes, right? And saws. And so there's this new lumberjack. He was all excited. He's all enthusiastic. He wanted to be the best lumberjack there ever was. So he told his foreman about that and all that. And he was excited about the kid's enthusiasm. He said, well, go get him, kid, kind of stuff. And so the first day he went out and chopped his trees, and he chopped like mad. He was going at it. And he did pretty good, especially for a beginner. He didn't break any records or anything. He came back disappointed because he hadn't broke a record. And he's like, kid, it's your first day. You're new at this. We got guys who have been experienced lumberjacks for years and years. They're just, they're better at what they do, but you'll learn. Hang in there. You'll get better. He's like, all right. He thought, tomorrow I'm gonna work a little harder. I'm gonna get up a bit earlier, or take a little bit shorter lunch, work a little harder, and I'm gonna see if I can break the record. And he went out there and he went like crazy and went at it, took a shorter lunch and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, he actually cut less trees than the day before. Stay tuned for the night. So my music just came on, so I guess I'm going to have to tell the rest of the story, which was a common refrain I know on radio, in the next segment. So if you want to hear the rest of the story, stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All right, welcome back. I was in the middle of a story talking about sharpening your axe, so I'm going to tell the rest of the story here. We got cut off by the commercial break. If you've heard this story before, I'm sure you'll appreciate it. And the question I'm asking is, are you taking time to sharpen your axe? And what do I mean by this? And like I said, I was telling this story about this lumberjack. He was a new, enthusiastic lumberjack, wanted to break the record. First day he went out there, he cut wood like mad. He chopped like mad. And he did really well, but he didn't break any records. He was a little disappointed. His foreman said, look, You'll get them. You just, you're learning. Give yourself time. You'll get better. We've got guys who have been doing this for years. But, encourage them to keep it. So he thought, take a little shorter lunch. I'll work a little bit harder and I'll break that record. Well, the second day he did all that. He worked longer by taking a shorter lunch, all that kind of stuff. But he ended up actually chopping less trees than he did the day before, which really was disappointing. And he talked to his foreman about it, and he's like, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit of an off day. I don't know. Maybe we're a little tired from the first day, whatever. But, just hang in there. You'll get them. You'll get there. And so the third day, he thought, you know what? I'm going to get up even earlier. I'm just going to eat real fast, take a super short lunch. That'll give me more time, daybreak to sunrise, sunset. I'm going to break this record. So he did all that. Third day, worked harder, earlier, worked later, shorter lunch, all of it. And he ended up cutting less trees than the previous day, even the previous 2 days. Each day he was doing a little less. Well, that was really frustrating him. He talked to his foreman about it, and he talked about a lot of things. Couldn't really put their finger on why. And he said, okay, that's all right. I'm going to do. He goes, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out before the sun rises. I'm skipping lunch completely. I'm going to work all the way through to sunset. Until after dark. I'm going to break this record. He did all that. And the fourth day, he cut less trees than he did the day before even. Each day, he was doing less and less. He was becoming less efficient, even though he was working harder and longer. And he was despondent at this point. He's drug himself in, exhausted, frustrated. And his foreman looked at him and he asked him one powerful question. He said, son, I was thinking, did you ever take any time to stop and sharpen your axe? And see, that's the point of the story. He was working harder, but the tool he was using was getting duller and duller and becoming less efficient. As human beings, we operate that way. Studies have shown if you try to sit down for an hour and focus, why do college, you're not as efficient. Why do college courses, think about it, classes, schools, things like that, why are they mostly around 45, 50 minutes? The answer is simple. It's because studies, they've proven that even, for college-age young people who are, at the top of their game mentally, right, or close, that's about all the longer they can really focus on something. Need a little break. That's why they get up, move around, change classes, right? 10, 15-minute break before they go into the next one. If you're talking about that, working from home and people doing things like that, it's easy to sit down and just start working in front of your computer or on whatever, and next thing you know, several hours later. That's not that you're not being as efficient as you can be. And are you taking the time to, are you setting aside time to think about what you want to accomplish? I try to start my week that way, and I try to start each day that way. Is what is it I want to accomplish today? What is it I want to accomplish this week? What would I consider an effective, productive day? What would I need to do to feel good about what I accomplished today? I think about those things. I jot them down many times. Many times I jot down a list, a to-do list, if you will. And this is, these are just things that work for me. They may work for you. Something else may work better. I don't know. But you need to take the time to organize your thoughts, organize your process, or whatever. And whether you're working, whether you're retired, I don't care what it is you do in life. These are important things that need to be done. And are you taking time, like I said, to sharpen your axe? Are you reading a book or feeding your mind with something positive that can improve your life going forward? What books are you reading, particularly through the holiday season? There's been a lot of recommended. You can go online and look at it. It's easy. Recommended books by leaders and business leaders, what some of their favorite books are. I mean, pick one out, pick 2 or 3 out, and just open them, check it out. Give yourself some new input, some new positive stuff. If there was ever a year we needed to do that, I think 2020 is it. This is the year it's needed. We've had so much negative. We've had so much change, so much, just polarization and all these other things, and the virus and the shutdowns and I shared this publicly with a lot of people that I think somewhere about early October, I got to the point where I couldn't even go on Facebook anymore because I don't know, maybe it's because who's connecting with me or whatever. I don't know. But what I was seeing on it just was, it felt like just people yelling at each other, just noise. And if anybody, one of my favorite Christmas movies is The Grinch. Okay, I just love that movie. And if you remember that one scene where he's in his cave and they're all singing, the Who's are all singing, and he's like, the noise. It was just driving him nuts. And that's what I felt about social media for a while. I took a month off, just refused to go on it because I didn't want to be a part of the noise, nor did I want to listen to it because I just didn't feel like anyone was listening. And I guess if there was a frustration from this past year that I've felt, and I think many people have felt, and trying to put a finger on it, is there's been a lot of noise, but there's been very little clear message. And that's one of my goals. I've always tried to cut through the noise and get to the bottom line of what is really important and not try to get too dramatic one way or the other. I think the extremes on either side, particularly talking politically, for example, are not good. I guess try to get to what's important, right? So be careful. Think about who you're listening to. We're a combination of who we hang out with, the books we read, who we listen to. Where are you getting your information from? Is it all primarily from one source? Are you getting it from a variety of sources? Sadly, with media today, let's face it, it's gotten to the point where I will look at the source of the article before I actually read the article because I want to know what the inherent bias is before I read it. And that gives me a better insight into what's being shared. I get frustrated because there's so much bias, and I'm saying this from all sides, by the way, on so many of media, what we call mainstream media today, particularly. And if you're just getting most, if not all of your information from one source, you never see the other side. If you just talk to people that just agree with you all the time, it seems to me to be a very, what's the word I'm trying to think of here? But it's a very limited way to live, okay? It's okay to disagree. I have folks that I communicate with, friends of mine and stuff, we don't always agree on everything, and that's okay. In fact, it's that differences of opinion that I find intellectual stimulus from, because then it helps you understand, if you take a genuine attitude and approach of trying to understand what the other person's perspective, by really listening, by asking probing questions, you can learn something from that. I'm not saying you necessarily agree with them, and there's many times I don't agree with them, and I'll let them know that. But it'll be a thoughtful response. I'm not going to attack them for not agreeing with me. I find that very disconcerting that's become so common this past year. I hope that's something that dies down. It's because somebody doesn't agree with you doesn't mean they're wrong. It's their perspective. And if you want to try to change or help affect that perspective, the best thing to do is listen and try to help them see things maybe in a different light. If they're not willing to listen, you're wasting your time. So move on. You know what I'm saying? Life's too short. That's maybe one of those things too one of those things we can learn this year. So stay tuned in the next segment, and we'll talk about a few more things about reflecting about this past year, where we want to be, what our goals are. We'll talk about a few financial goals for next year and what we see coming. So stay tuned.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
All right, we're rounding third. We're kind of finishing up this, a special message I wanted to share with folks during this Christmas holiday season. Talked a lot about, philosophy, things about how this past year has affected people, myself, clients, how we kind of look at things. And I'll finish this last segment thought here with a few things looking forward. Looking forward with a healthy dose of optimism and caution. at the same time. I'm really kind of on the fence, if you will. There's in some respects, there's, like I said, a lot of optimism going forward because as we see the vaccines start to get deployed and more people will have access to them, particularly those that are higher risk, that should open things back up, reduce these restrictions, if not eliminate them. And, of course, we've been shut down in many parts of the country and some people for better part of a year. Certainly there should be some pent-up demand, and that'll be unleashed. So, second, third quarter of next year should look really good from those respects. The things to be concerned about, I think one of the big ones has to be real estate and the end of the moratorium. The end of the the foreclosure and the rent moratoriums, the eviction things. There's a lot of folks out there who have lost jobs or reduced incomes or businesses, as we've talked about many times on the show. And once those rents or mortgages come due, and not only they're going to have to pay those, but maybe some back rent, back mortgage, what's going to happen? I think there's a definite possibility, a strong possibility, I'll put it that way, that it can impact real estate values in some cases pretty significantly. If we see more longer term unemployment because, a significant portion of small businesses have gone out of business permanently, which means there's less jobs. That's a small business employs approximately half the jobs in the country. So if we see a higher level of unemployment, that could be a real drag on the economy going forward. The Federal Reserve's come out recently and said they're going to keep interest rates very low and keep bond buying. So they're being very dovish in supporting the economy for the foreseeable future. And they pretty much have said they're going to do that until they see employment get back to normal levels and interest rates, or I should say inflation, get back to more normal levels, at least 2% plus. How long will that take? That's frankly impossible to know. It could happen quite quickly. I mean, we saw dramatic changes and shifts this past year, no question. I wouldn't put anything out of the realm of possibility. It could take quite some time too, or it could be anything in between. I think this is one of those things where we're going to just have to ride with, again, a healthy amount of optimism with a healthy dose of skepticism. Going to have to ride both sides for a while. And again, it comes back to your personal bank fits into that whole mix, that portfolio extremely well, particularly for that safer portion or that diversification portion of your portfolio. I'm going to encourage you to contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. I'll be happy to, we'll send you some additional information, be happy to discuss your situation with you, show you how we can enhance your financial future, increase your liquidity, reduce your taxes, actually increase your income, reduce debt, accelerate debt payoff if that's a need, any of those things. And by the way, by bringing in a bank line of credit, we're setting up a high cash value policy. Like I said, we have companies paying 6% plus dividends, have so for the past 25 years, pretty much every year. I'll show you the charts. I'll show you the dividend history of all the different companies so you'll know who to work with. This is not complicated. It's not rocket science. It'll become immediately obvious. And then you set up a bank line of credit. They're charging the 3 to 3.95s based on the size of how much funds you have. So if I always ask people the question, look, if you're getting credited 6% dividend and you're getting charged 3 to 3.95 when you spend the money for, say, paid debt or purchase items, what's your money doing for you? The answer is simple. It's still working. You're still benefiting from those dollars, at least a portion of it. And otherwise, if you spend the money, it's gone, right? So you buy an item or you pay bills, it's gone normally. Here, you can still pick up 2 or 3% positive arbitrage based on everything that's going on currently. And by the way, I'm going to recommend you to stay tuned to Your Personal Bank show because I got some. I can't tell you this because there's some things that are not finalized yet. But we've got some exciting announcements starting the first of the year on several fronts. So not only is the personal bank concept working well for many people, we're actually there's some things we're working on that are actually going to give us the ability make improvements even further. And those of you that already have them in place, stay tuned, because you'll be able to take advantage of that in the enhancements also. So from a reflective standpoint, looking at this past year, wow, it's been a crazy ride. It's been tough at times. It's been frustrating. There's been times where I've had to share things I didn't want to share. I'm naturally an optimistic person, and I've had to share a lot of news and a lot of things that aren't necessarily so much fun. But I am looking forward to next year. We will get through this. This will be over. And it looks like at this point, with everything going on, it'll be over sooner than later. So that's the good news. There will be some long-term ramifications, some hangover effects, if you will, that are going to be of concern. That's going to impact your money. It could impact the markets. It could impact the value of assets. It could impact the value of real estate, for example. There's a lot of things that definitely can happen, but giving yourself the cash reserves and allowing them to grow with positive arbitrage, liquidity, and all that stuff to take advantage of opportunities or emergencies when they occur, I think is probably more important than it's ever been. I've been saying this for over 20 years. It's always been important. Always have a cash reserve. Always have some funds that are diversified and not affected by the overall. For example, if you're in the markets, for example, always have some funds outside of the markets that are not in fact impacted by the market in general for diversification purposes alone, if nothing else, and for purposes of being able to take advantage of opportunities when, for example, the markets do take a dive, like we saw in March. Okay? If you're all in real estate, I'll say the same thing. In other words, having all of your monies in that bucket. In real estate, either going up, you benefit, great, but if it takes a hit, you suffer. I've experienced some of these things myself personally. In essence, being overexposed and not truly being diversified. And that's where your personal bank can really step in and make a difference and allow you to take advantage of those opportunities. Don't let some of the preconceived notions and things you've heard stop you. This is different. It's improved. It's grown. It's gotten better. Don't let age and health stop you. We can insure and set up people much older and less healthy than you think. In most cases, we get most cases approved, by the way, one way or the other. So this is an opportunity that's available for most people. You just need to reach out. Contact us at yourpersonalbank.com. We'll send you additional information. If you want, we'll schedule a time to chat. Set up a Zoom, GoToMeeting type call. Look at your situation. See how we can enhance your financial future, accelerate debt payoff, enable you to get positive arbitrage on items you purchase, and increase the return on investments on assets. We can do all those things, but most importantly, stay safe, enjoy the holiday season, and we'll look forward to seeing you next year because it's going to be an awesome one, so stay tuned.
Listen Tuesday at noon and Thursdays at 1 for more information on Your Personal Bank. Contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.